And we are doing this one live, so if people want to ask questions, they can.
We love shooting, hunting, and educating. So if you want to learn about long-range shooting, you're in the right place. This is the Long Range Addicts Podcast. Shooter ready, stand by.
I just messed up my thing. There we go. I got to turn my thing down so I can see myself over here too, because I like seeing myself so much. You know how that shit goes. Not. Anyway, welcome to another episode of the Long Range Addicts Podcast. I've been trying to record a lot of these kind of during the day just because at night I want to spend time with family and kind of do my thing. But I wanted to really sit down with Andy today and kind of go over some posts that I've seen him make recently and made me even think about some of my stuff. First off, I want to thank, of course, Primary Arms, our title sponsor. If you haven't seen it, they did come out with a new med kit. I got one. I think med kits are super important, whether it's in your vehicle, whether it's on your person, whether it's an ankle, something there to really help somebody. You never know what's going to happen, especially in today's times when you need to help somebody. Especially in like a vehicle, you ever come upon a rollover and you need a tourniquet or something like that. They're just awesome to have. Another thing that I just got was a new upper system. I'm going to do some more about it. I'm actually going to do it with this new Stealth Project suppressor. Stealth Projects just sent this to me for review. They've got a couple cans coming to me. I've honestly never heard of Stealth Project, but I'm going to review them. I'm going to see how they are, and hopefully I'll get that back to you. Behind me is a KGM suppressor. Just got it. Super excited about it. I've got a couple KGMs. If you're listening, you don't see them. They're behind me, but this is my third KGM. This is the new 338 titanium can. We're going to put it on the Lapua and beat the hell out of it and see how it holds up. And I'm excited to get into that. Our next section, of course, I'm trying to do these weekly what shit you've seen this week and some other stuff, is brought to you by Falcor Defense. Falcor, of course, comes out the new 7 action, the new MT7 action, their chassis, whole bunch of new stuff in the precision side. They've always been known, of course, for their their 300 Win Mag AR systems and some of that stuff. But Jason and the team have put a lot of thought into building and designing these new products, and they've done something that a lot of other companies need to take into account. Cough, cough. If you're listening, is going to the people that actually use the product and talking to them about them. It's amazing how many companies don't do that. So, without further ado, I want to go into this week shit we've seen, and I want to introduce Andy. Of course, if you don't know who Andy is, you should. He's been around. I started shooting Andy a long time ago. We were just talking about that before the podcast, about kind of the good old days of when shit first started and the fun we had and everything else and kind of the direction of it. But introduce yourself real quick, Andy.
Hey, Cole. Thanks for having me on. My name is Andy Reinhardt. I've been shooting the PR or the precision rifle stuff. Trying not to say the 33 letters here. I've been shooting that since about 2011. So I'm coming up on about 11 years now in this discipline. I started in the industry back in 2007 as a firearms instructor. Came up with pistol, rifle, shotgun, shot a lot of USPSA, 3-gun. Honestly, never thought I'd see myself shooting a bolt gun. I don't know. You remember Joe Metzger, my partner that I shot a lot of the team matches with CD. He got a wild hair, and we were shooting a lot of ARs together. We shared a range, and he went and bought a bolt gun that took him like 3 years to get the thing. So, what are you doing? Like, you're buying an antique. This is retarded. This is stupid. I don't know what you're doing. It's 2010, buy an AR-10, So he drugged me out, kicking and screaming, to one of these CD team matches because he needed somebody to shoot the AR. And we went out there and got our asses handed to us, really, but figured out, hey, this is awesome. And we shot those for the next couple of years, and I was hooked. And I went out and had Fritz, who a lot of you guys may know from Mile High, who's now Black Canyon Customs. He built me a bolt gun when he was over at TJ's gunsmithing, and it's kind of been history since there. I've been addicted and hooked, and shoot a ton of team matches, which incorporate ARs, pistols, bolt guns, all that kind of stuff. And then about 6 years ago, I added the uh, precision rifle into my training curriculum, which we were doing pistol, carbine, shotgun, all that stuff already. And I've always been on the concept of I'm not going to teach something unless I've, got the background behind it. I'm not just going to pick up something like, oh, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm just going to go ahead and teach this. I want to give my people value, and that I know something. So about 5, 6 years ago, I started adding that to my curriculum, and it's kind of gone from there. So um, for the last 3 years, I've been the lead instructor down at the NRA Whittington Center for their long range precision courses. I also teach with Brian Whalen with Colorado Precision Rifle. He teaches for all the classes for Thunder Beast, JP rifles. Now has picked up all the classes up at Trigger Time in Colorado. So if you guys watch Sniper's Hide or any of that, you probably saw him do a lot of stuff with the 224 Valkyrie when it first came out. And then I've got a lot of my own thing going on now. We recently moved up to Nebraska from Colorado. Wasn't getting enough wind practice, so I was like, "Yeah, I'll move to Nebraska," and it hasn't stopped here for like 3 months. So,
Yeah.
trying to just develop a new training curriculum up here with some of the stuff that we've been learning and some of the new disciplines like the Hunter series that we've been doing, trying to get more people involved with that. I think that's kind of the cutting edge of what's going to be going on in our industry. Is the Hunter series stuff and that kind of unknown distance, um, real riflemanship stuff, and outside of that gamey drag racing aspect of the sport. So
Yeah, and I mean a lot of that transfers over, right? If you
sure,
really go into a match and you kind of look at it like, hey, I'm not shooting off a tank trap, but what would I be shooting off in real life? Trying to
hmm
program your mind through some of that. But going through the Hunter series and doing some of that, it's definitely going to open some people's eyes. I think, get off your freaking stomach. Don't go to the range. Sit at the damn bench. That's not going to help you. You're not going to
yeah,
have a bench out on the field. And a
no,
lot of that stuff is really going, and that's something that we want to kind of open people's eyes to, and really get them thinking outside the box to hunting. I mean, there's not been a whole lot of times in my life that I've shot necessarily straight up prone. There's
yeah,
too many variables, whether it's tall grass, whether it's shit in your road, whether it's and the positioning and understanding positions and how to utilize what you've got, whether it be pack or different things. So, and that's a
hmm
good thing. If you were to go take a course from Andy or anybody else, I mean, that's stuff you're going to learn as, um, you go. And I would recommend that if you're thinking about doing the Hunter series, to maybe go get with one of these guys and learn some of this prior, because it might be super overwhelming if you're going out there and you're doing 5 different things instead of just your normal one. You're finding targets, you're ranging targets, you're engaging targets, you're following misses. There's so many variables that come into it, and I think that's one thing that might be kicking people's ass anymore. Is they're like, oh, hunter match, I'm gonna go shoot that, and then
yeah.
they're like, oh, this isn't what I was thinking, type thing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We just did a really great class the end of, I'm going to say end of February, beginning of March, over at Cameo with Brian Whalen. We had about 12 students out there, and it was a hunter specific match. Um, so we taught out there. Our typical range we teach at's down at Logan in the Blue Steel Ranch in Logan, New Mexico, there, where they have the Competition Dynamics series. So they've had some NRL stuff down there, but it's on natural terrain. We do the first day on a flat range, with known distance targets, but then we get people out and we start throwing different areas at them. And we kind of, the whole idea behind the Hunter series and the CD matches and the team matches and all that are let you hang yourself with the rope that you've got. Um, I see Caleb's on there. What's up, dude? Um, so you're not strapped to you need to do A, then go do B, then go do C. It's there are targets out there. Here's the position. You got to be within arm's reach of the position and go. And you have to figure out what you're doing. And that throws people for a loop when they do not have this choreographed exercise that they can't just execute, that they've had 20 minutes to sit there and watch 10 other people do what they do. The for so many years, the uh, precision rifle leagues have been, okay, barricade, throw a game changer on it, go. Oh, here's another barricade, throw a game changer on it, go. And getting away from that aspect, making people range their own targets is a huge aspect, and finding their own targets. I think that's the number one place where people are really having a hard time with, is they don't know how to find targets. That is a skill in its own right, is actually finding those targets, how to scan. Um, we found, Brian Whalen really kind of is one of my mentors. I was fortunate enough to be able to start teaching with him, and he tells a story in some of his classes now. He just got out of the military, and I was like one of his first students out of his when he's teaching, and I show up with my new pair of Leicas, right? He's got some old piece of crap that I don't know. He was out of the army, and poor broke soldier coming out there, and I was like, man, it's pretty bad when the students show up with better equipment than the instructors do. And so Monday morning, he had a brand new pair of Leicas. But he really was one that kind of showed me, look, this is how you're going to find targets. And we don't scan left to right when we're looking for targets, because we tend to read like that. Our eyes want to go that way naturally. And you're using a set of binos which have a wide field of view, not a tall field of view. Okay, so if we've got this narrow field of view, but it's really wide. If we're scanning left to right, it takes 20 or 30 passes to scan an area. If I'm scanning up and down, I start at my left limit, I move all the way up, I scan over, I move down, I scan over, I move up, and all of a sudden I've got the entire area covered, and I can find targets a lot easier that way. So just something as simple as the technique you're using in scanning to find those things. A lot of hunters are reliant on movement to find animals, right? Because you're looking for this huge beast out in the field that, yeah, they may be camouflaged, but at some point they're going to move. And that's when you're going to see them. Well, in this precision rifle sport, we don't have any movement. Those targets are the size of the kill zone, not the size of an animal. So you're looking at a 12-inch diamond at the distance that you would shoot a large deer or elk or coyote or wolf or whatever the case may be, and it's not moving. And it's also camouflaged because they don't paint these things. They're either beat up from last year, or they proof shot them and aren't going to go out and repaint them because they're not going to give the first guy that gets shoots them an advantage. So you're really, I think that's the big takeaway from these, is becoming a better, not marksman, but a better rifleman. Um, Being a rifleman has a way bigger connotation than being able to pull a trigger, right? Being a rifleman has to do with being able to have some physical abilities so you can get out to the field where you're going to shoot at. So you can't be a fat lump of crap sitting on your couch and do these matches. It's not going to work, because you have to haul your butt out to these positions. They're not going to take you out there. There's no four-wheeler that's going to go out there with you. You have to be able to range the targets and find them. Ranging them is a whole nother issue. How many people know how to actually use a rangefinder properly, or have a rangefinder that they've actually used in the field? A lot of people buy these little handheld binoculars. They say, oh, 600 yards. Well, guess what? That's good till about 300 yards. Your good SIGs and things like that, yeah, you can stretch those out a little further. But what people don't understand a lot is, okay, I found them in the binos. Great. Now I'm going to drop those binos down. I'm going to take this little handheld rangefinder that's now a monocular, not a binocular. So I'm looking through two different types of glass. I'm trying to find that target again. And then I'm going to come down and then try and get up on my rifle scope, which is a whole nother magnification. It's a whole nother position. I'm now going from a high to a low position. And now I'm trying to find that again. So now I'm trying to find that target 3 different times with 3 different pieces of glass. And how big is your range finding laser? Is it What's the divergence on it? So if I'm trying to hit a piece of steel at 600 yards, I'm probably hitting the hill behind that that's 150, 200 yards behind it, not that piece of steel. So trying to figure out, hey, I need to range the base of the target where the actual stand hits the base of the ground, or that bush that's right next to it, which is even complicated there because a lot of times it looks like it's right next to it, but it's 50, 60 yards beyond that. So there's so many things that come into being a skilled rifleman, and then that picking the position. CD is phenomenal at doing this. Zach is one of I think, the best match directors out there for really screwing with people. He the positions he picks. So basically, if people don't know what a CD match, they will take a just spray paint, and they'll put it like on a rock. Okay, and this rock may be 6, 12 inches high or whatever. Well, the rules don't say I have to be laying on that rock, but it draws people into that, and it makes them want to lay right on top of that. You're getting that almost that target fixation, right? That so many, or that deer fever that so many people get, and you're like, oh, there's the dot. I got to be laying on it, and so more often than not, if you would scoot over 2 feet left or 2 feet right, I can still touch that dot while I'm on my rifle. But he does that on purpose so that I'm building a really tall tripod position off this really weird, awkward position when I could just scoot over, 2 feet to the left, and I've got a solid prone position. So I love shooting those type of matches where the match director puts a lot of thought into making you think. Because I can teach a monkey how to pull a trigger. I want to teach shooters how to think, right? And how to uh, uh, understand their environment and what they're doing out there, not just, oh, there's target, pull trigger,
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of want to break that down a little bit more. Everybody's going to be like, well, if you've got to find these targets, that doesn't matter. And if you're a true hunter and you haven't learned how to kind of what Andy's going towards is what I call grid searching. So I put stuff in a grid on the side of a mountain. If you've ever glassed for deer, especially in the middle of the day, or elk, anything, they're tucked up under a tree, they're hidden, and you're trying to see that. And so you can either look at these targets like, well, they're not moving, they're not big enough, why would I ever do this, to I'm looking for these targets because I'm trying to essentially find a buck that's laying down or an elk that's laying down. So now, instead of just looking for target, in my mind, I'm telling myself, okay, I'm going to grid search, kind of like what he did. Now, he did put that in better terms, and I've never really heard it like that. And I didn't even think of looking for targets like that. So here I am learning. But just think of it that way. Don't go into it. Now, I know there's been I've RO'd a few NRL hunter matches just trying to help out with the time that I have, and a lot of people that are colorblind have a lot of problem with NRL hunter matches. The reason why is colorblind people try to teach their brain to watch for movement because they can't tell the colors apart. And if there's trees or if there's different things, it's really hard. So that's something you're going to have to practice too. But as a colorblind person, this might really help you if you look at it into the fact of I'm trying to find a needle in a haystack, like he said.
Sure.
And we talked about this before, getting off your belly, practicing the positions, kind of going to your competition dynamics. There's a rock thing, but looking around you to find the best, most stable position is something that people just don't have in their mind. It's amazing. It's like, okay, you've got let's say you've got a tree branch that's about the right height you need. There's a rock, there's a fence line, and there's just let's say a down tree right here. Now, which one would I choose to get the most stable position? Now, people aren't practicing that because they're not figuring out what they're going to be most comfortable with, whether it's shooting out of a tree and having a bipod or a tripod as your rear support or something like that. So that's what's going to help you in these kind of matches as well, is going outside the box, being able to look right or left. And if you're a hunter, you know that you've only got a split second in a lot of situations to make those shots, unless the animals don't know you're there, they're bedded or they're eating or something. That's different. But these are all just things that I've heard too many people have, bitches or gripes about. They're like, well, this isn't going to affect me. This doesn't have anything to do with me. And it's like, bullshit. You've got to look at it, from the up view. You've got to understand that all these things are going to be able to help you, and you put it all together. And now I didn't really think about it, the fact about Andy said about having 3 pieces of glass. Now he's going to freaking make me go buy a damn freaking binocular.
Laser rangefinder binos, man. That's the only way to go.
What the hell did I ever do to you? You're just trying to make me spend money.
Oh,
I
I
can
spend people's money like the best of them, man. I'm great at spending people's money.
I gotta go sell something. I've only got 1 kidney left. I think I sold the other one. Shady.
There's a lot of organs. You only need one of, man.
Yeah, but no, I'm glad. And see, this is why I do the podcast and I do these things, because hell, I'm even learning as we go too. So that's one of those great things. Now, one of the biggest things that I wanted to bring you on about is I sat there and read a post. I don't know, it's been a couple weeks ago. And I sat there and I think it was a long post. And I sat there and I read it a couple times. And I'm like, I never thought of it that way. And that is the scope height post that you made that I think blew a lot of people's minds. Now, we've all been programmed to want a scope, the lowest rings. If you can slide a piece of paper between the scope and the freaking barrel, you're perfect. That's what you want. You want that, just the lowest possible thing you can get. And granted, on a stock that doesn't have an adjustable cheek piece, maybe, but most of us are shooting adjustable cheek pieces, chassis, things like that. And I'm like, well, hell, now I've got to go back and look at all my rifles, because there have been a lot of times where I've been laying down shooting and I stand up and I freaking look like I got something wrong with me because my neck's so damn sore. And I never really thought of it in the aspect that you said it. So why don't you kind of go into that and explain your process behind that? Because I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Sure. Well, I took a lot of hate and heat for this stupid post. But I originally posted it on Facebook on this group page. It's the Jeff Cooper Scout Rifle page. And there was a guy on there who had some really tall rings and was just taking a lot of hate and heat on that deal. And so I went on there and posted this. Well, about 4 years ago, I was down at Rifles Only. And first of all, I didn't come up with this, right? This is something that I got from somebody else. I got it from Nico Detour, who apparently got it from Solomon Mansala, who apparently got it from Scott Satterley. I know Frank Galley's been doing a bunch of stuff with this. But I was down at Rifles Only and I'm shooting behind Nico, and I go over and I look at his rifle. I'm like, what is going on with your gun, dude? I'm like, did you have to take your bolt out? Like, what's going on with your cheek piece? Why are your scope's so high? Like, this is ridiculous. Everybody knows your scope's supposed to be super low, right? And he says, nah, man, we've been doing some testing and we've been doing some shooting. We found that this just works better. It's more consistent across platforms. And I had seen for myself, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. Different positions, especially the higher I would get. So, right, high kneeling, low standing, high standing. I was having rounds go low on my when I was shooting, and I'm like, maybe it's just I'm not solid in that position. I'm not this. I came up with a million different things, right? So I'd really been talking to some guys and talking to Tyler over at MOA, and he had got me shooting on a lot of paper and both center fire and rim fire, and trying to diagnose what was going on with this. And well, what I started seeing was when I'm shooting prone, which is how we all set up our rifle, right? We get in that low prone position. I set up my rifle. My groups were perfect, and they were right in the center of my dots. So I'm shooting this at 100-yard half-inch dots. I'm also shooting these at 50 yards from quarter-inch dots with my 22. And I did a lot of practice with my 22 on that because I could afford to shoot 50 or 100 rounds a day, 5 days a week, and practice this. So after talking to Nico down there, I go home and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this out. So I call up Andy Hawkins, got a taller set of rings. And first I took about 3 weeks and just shot test groups, right? With what I had, the way it was set up, everything. And I would shoot 50 rounds. I had five rows of targets, 5 dots across, and I would shoot 2 rounds at each for a total of 50 rounds. And different uh, each different line of 5, I would do a different. So I'd shoot prone, I'd shoot a low kneeling, high kneeling, low standing, high standing. So that's my 5 groups. And then just see what the correlation was between each one. Well, across the board consistently, my prone is perfect. I go up to kneeling, it's pretty good, but I'm a little lower in the dot. Go up to my high kneeling, I'm a little lower in the dot. I'm like touching the bottom of the dot. And by the time I'm getting to standing, I'm like, my bullets are touching each other. I'm shooting an excellent group still, but my group had moved outside of that dot, okay, where it was well below it. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Do I just suck shooting? I mean, obviously I don't, because I'm putting 2 bullets in one hole, you know. So I make this change that Nico and Scott Satterley and all these guys had been doing for a while, and long and behold, all of a sudden now my groups in prone and kneeling and high kneeling and low standing and high standing are all landing in the middle of my uh, circle. So what I found out is, after doing some reverse testing, and this is over like a 4-month period, I'm shooting 50 to 100 rounds a day, plus shooting another 50 to 100 rounds a week on center fire. And just really testing this all out with different bags and different barricades and heights and all this kind of stuff, just trying to prove this to myself, because shooting is such a mental game. If you don't understand why you're doing something, uh, it doesn't make any sense, and you're not going to believe in it, and you're not going to keep doing it. In fact, I tell a lot of people, I'm like, well, do you believe in what you're doing, and is it working? Then keep doing it. Like, what? Don't listen to me. Like, listen to what you believe in and what works. If it works and you believe it, keep doing it. So I basically had to prove this to myself, and over that time, I started looking at, well, why would that be happening? And I was videotaping myself shooting all these different positions. Well, what I noticed was, in the prone position, I'm proned out and we're in the typical turkey neck, right? We're sticking our neck out. We've got that big crane to the back of our neck. Well, what happens there is my eyeball is actually lower in my scope, or would be perfect in my scope, because I set my rifle up for prone position with that low scope. And as I'm coming up, when I go into a kneeling position, it pushes my head back and my head becomes more erect. Well, what happens is it makes my eyeball a little taller. And so now I'm looking through a different position in my scope. And now I go up a little higher and I'm in a high kneeling position. Now my head's more erect and I'm even looking in a higher spot in my scope. So I'm actually looking down through the scope, through the rear lens, down through the ocular in a angle versus looking straight through it. Well, what I'm doing is I'm causing a parallax error in my scope. So I didn't know my parallax isn't shifting, or I'm not checking it in each. I set it in a prone position. I'm shooting at 50 yards or 100 yards or whatever that is, but my head is not in the same position as it was before. Well, by changing my scope height and lowering that cheek piece from a high, we were always talking about, oh, you want that good cheek weld, right? Which is right in that cheekbone, is what we're always telling people. That's been for 100 years, right? That ever since rifle marksmanship, cheek weld, cheek weld, cheek weld. Well, what I found out is I still have a cheek weld. I just moved it down to a anchor point, right? This was my anchor point before. Now I moved it down to here. So my anchor point is now where my jaw and my teeth on that gum line come together, and it keeps my head erect and in the same position through all the different positions. Now, I had to change a few things to do that. Obviously, we talked about scope height. I had to lower my cheek piece down, and then I'm taking a little bit higher position in my prone. Okay, so I'm giving up a little bit of that real low, like chest on the ground prone. But again, how often do we shoot in prone position? And prone position is the easiest position to shoot from. So if I'm going to give something up, I'm going to give it up in that position. Okay. Typically, I'm always shooting from a kneeling, a standing, a high, low kneeling, whatever the case may be. So in prone, I gave up a little bit of that. Well, around this time, we've got sky pods are coming out. We're shooting off tripods a lot. So that wasn't a big deal to me. I could take a little higher position. I'm going to get up on my elbows a little bit more. I'm going to give a little bit more arch in my back. But what that gives me is I can stay in that position forever now because I don't have that nasty crane in my neck that you talked about earlier. And that, oh my God, I got up and like, oh, I can't walk for 2 days because I just laid in my prone position for an hour. Now I'm in a more upright, natural position that I don't have to worry about stretching my body. And really, when I started going back and looking, I'm like, this makes so much sense because for years we've been teaching with pistol and carbine and all those. You want to come to that center line of the body. You want to bring the gun up in front of you, right? We don't want to go into this position with our pistol where we're craning our head forward and we're hunching our shoulders. We want to bring that pistol up in front of our eyes and bring everything up so that we're in a natural action, natural body movement stance. My body knows what my body likes to do because it walks around every day with my head held upright and my eyes, and my body all centered here. Well, now we're trying to change our natural physiology over how our body acts to get real low behind this and get this turkey neck situation. So, it was just something I had to prove to myself. And once I did, my score started going through the roof because I'm not missing these shots that are coming in low now, right? And I figured out why I was doing it. And more and more people are starting to understand this. Like I said, I think Scott Satterley's put out a video on it. Frank Galley's put out a video on it. It's becoming very well known in our circles in the precision rifle world. And it's still very, the precision or the gun world is very dogmatic, right? That's my dad taught me how to, or my grandpa taught him, and my dad taught me, or I was in the military in the 70s, and this is what we learned, and that must be how we have to do things, right? And people are very reluctant to change. In fact, that was one of the biggest things I got. Oh, look at this guy. He thinks he's going to change 100 years of rifle marksmanship technique. I'm like, I'm not changing anything. I'm just telling you what works for me. It's a tool that you put in your toolbox. And if it works, great. Like, it makes you a better rifleman, makes you a better marksman. If it doesn't, if you're 70 years old and you've been shooting that way for, 50 plus years, it's probably not going to work good for you because you're already so ingrained in what you've been doing. So don't change. But if you're coming into this sport or, this discipline and you're starting from zero, which, you should be going and getting quality instruction from a quality instructor. Why not do it the right way? That's going to lead to more hits, being more comfortable behind your rifle. I really am a big fan of Phil Vallejo and Kalen Wojcik, how they talk about being mindful behind the rifle. I think that is an excellent way to think about it, is be mindful of what you're doing. Can you explain to me why you're doing something and why it works? If you can, then it probably works. But a lot of this stuff came from that military background of you're just going to do it and you're going to like it. And, that's how we do things here. And also, they didn't have the opportunity to change their weapon systems to fit each individual. So if I'm building a rifle and I'm spending $3 or $4 grand on building this custom rifle, I can change it and make it whatever I want. I am not stuck with whatever was issued to me and then making my body adapt to it. I want to make my rifle adapted to my body. And that's why everybody's going to have a different scope ring height. They're going to have a different cheek weld, or I've even got rid of the cheek weld aspect, and I'm calling it facial anchor point, which I know I've taken some heat on that one. Oh, you better be careful with facial anchor point.
That's the same thing with archery, right? Archery has an anchor point. It's either, it's earlobe, it's however. So it's used in other contexts just fine. So I don't see why it wouldn't be.
And that's where I got that from. Is I had some, and it was just kind of this epiphany moment. And some guy came on there, he's like, "Oh, so you're kind of saying it's kind of like archery, where you have this anchor point on your face." I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly what it's like. You pick that spot and you're anchoring that rifle to that spot. It doesn't have to be a cheek weld. We can still call it a cheek weld if you want, but cheek weld, tends to be that dogmatic, right? It needs to be on the cheekbone. Well, okay, maybe it is for you, but my cheekbones might be lower or higher. You know, I, we talked about Joe Metzger earlier. I used to shoot with him a lot. And in these team matches, sometimes you switch rifles. My face and his face are not even close. I can't see through his scope when I try and get behind it, because it was the distance between his cheek and his eyepiece were so close, I can't get my face on it. So I think changing that mindset of it using a facial anchor point, I'm calling it FAP, facial anchor point, so that it's pick that spot. And you don't want it to be a piece of skin somewhere. Pick that jaw, that bone weld spot, right? Like I said, mine's right here where the teeth and the gums and the jaw come together. It may be for some people right on the top here where the jaw and the teeth come together. For some people, it may be up into the actual cheekbone. But don't get stuck to it has to be one place for every person, because every person's built a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit a lot of good points there. Another point that I kind of want to let people think about is a lot of people, when you go to the range and you set up a camera, you feel like an idiot, right? A lot of people do. Sometimes, people are going to give you shit. Oh, what are you doing? Being a Facebook star, you're going to be a social media star. Phil does it all the time, but Phil does it on different terms. He does it to watch himself. He goes back and reviews it. And then he tries to figure out, okay, what was I doing? So you could kind of take that context and go after what Andy's talking about and set up a video and watch yourself and see how uncomfortable your head is. See exactly what he's meaning, because we've all sat there and we've shot. If you've shot enough, getting behind your rifle, if your muscles aren't relaxed, if you're not right behind the rifle, things in your tense and your muscles, they start to throw you off and they start to do things. So, I mean, just video record yourself every once in a while. Set a camera up. Everybody's got a cell phone. Set it up. Watch yourself, and then maybe send the video to us. I mean, Andy would probably be happy to review it with you. I would be, send it to Phil or Kaylin. I know they're phenomenal. But this is the thing, is I'm still not in the place that I want to be as a shooter, because I'm always still learning and I'm always still evolving. And that's one good thing that you can learn here now. I'm not saying go out and buy a whole new set of rings, which I'm going to have to. Frickin' Andy, I got to check my damn credit card freaking balance here. Now I got to
call up Hawkins. He'll ship them right to you.
I got to get binos now. I got to get rings. It's like, son of a freaking Andy, costing me money on my own damn podcast. Here it goes.
You wouldn't believe how many people I've had contact me this last couple of weeks and be like, "Oh man, now I have to buy a new set of rings."
But, and then you've got to figure out what it is. Are they high rings? Are they medium rings? What's going to fit you? And then hopefully your stock or your chassis has enough adjustment in it to where you can get comfortable and you can get behind it. And, I don't know if there's necessarily a great option for you guys and gals out there that have like a fixed stock. There's the padded cheek welds. There's, different stuff off Amazon. I think there's some plastic ones if you dare drill through your stock. There's some options out there to kind of get it a little bit higher and do that. But maybe some of you are only shooting a couple rounds a year and it doesn't matter. I don't know, but it's something that you probably ought to do a little research and look into on your own time, and maybe do a little testing like Andy did, because Andy did 4 months testing. That doesn't mean you have to, but if you go buy, a couple boxes of ammo in these hard times, you go out and you be a stripper or whatever it takes to get it. And you go
$20 is $20, man.
Hey, especially gas, man. That might get me to the freaking gas station and back for $20 anymore. Holy shit. But we were talking a little bit, kind of where we've come from. We started, I think me and you shot, I think it was back in 2011 or so. I've heard a lot of people, why aren't you shooting anymore? Why don't you shoot? And I'm like, you guys realized that we started shooting long before you were even out of high school. So I don't want to freaking hear it. But, we were talking about kind of the direction everything's going. And, a lot of people are bitching now about all these single one-day matches. There's too many matches. There's just not, But when we started, I mean, we only had a couple opportunities to ever shoot a match, period. There was one match in Utah, one or two. The NRL came, the PRS came. We started doing more and more matches and things like that, and it's definitely gone a long ways. But I think it's definitely a value add for a lot of you newer shooters trying to learn how to shoot and do some of these things, to go get the opportunity to go shoot one of these. And we could go into a whole nother podcast on prize tables and all that bullshit, but I like the direction that a lot of these matches are going. No prize tables. You show up, you shoot, you have fun. And to me, I think I'm having a lot more fun doing those. I mean, we kind of talked about that before, Andy, didn't we?
Yeah. I've got to the point, I still shoot the NRL Hunter matches, and yeah, it's a points series, but I'm not shooting it because the points series. Like, yeah, if I make the finale, great. That's awesome. I have some sponsors that, I like to be able to show, yeah, I'm out there participating, and there's a certain number of matches they want me to shoot a year, but I haven't shot a PRS match since 2018. I'm happy for it. I did chase NRL points for a couple more years after that. But with the NRL going away this year, I didn't even chase NRL points last year. I'm shooting CD matches. I'm shooting NRL Hunter matches. Shooting some of these outlaw matches like WTRC, which is part of the Rifleman Team Challenge this year. Just a little plug here, guys. If you don't know about WTRC, Wyoming Tactical Rifle Championships, go check it out. They got a Facebook page. You can register on Practice Score. I got them all set up on Practice Score this year. One of the best matches going. It's a team match, rifle, pistol, rifle, pistol, and AR carbine. Very similar to a CD match, but just longer and bigger and more targets. And get out and have fun. That's why we started shooting this and that's how the whole series even started. It was a bunch of guys that enjoyed shooting together that wanted to be better, and they wanted to learn what the limitations of a bolt gun were and how accurate and how fast you could be. So they started getting together in Texas and Oklahoma and Utah and Colorado and shooting these matches, and it became what you see it is today. When I started shooting this, there was like 5 matches you could go to. And if you weren't like Johnny on the spot and knew somebody, like they would open up and in like 10 minutes, every match in the country was sold out. And and a lot of them were, if they didn't know who you were, it wasn't, when you registered, it wasn't a guarantee you're going to go to that match. It was, hey, if they didn't know you and you weren't a decent person, like, sorry, we don't know who you are, or you're a jerk. We don't want you at our match. You didn't get invited. And we have so many, I call this the golden age of precision rifle. I mean, we have so many opportunities to shoot matches, so many different disciplines. Why wouldn't you participate? The amount of equipment available right now, there was not a factory rifle available when I started shooting this that could compete. And now there's a dozen factory rifles from major manufacturers, not to mention, the MPA, like production rifle, the PVA production rifle. I mean, why wouldn't you get involved in this at this point? It's so easy, and the threshold of entry is so much lower than it has ever been before. Don't worry about what the guys in jerseys are doing. Don't worry about, what the rest of your squad shoots. Worry about trying to be a better marksman and a better rifleman, whatever that means to you. If you're a hunter, man, I'll tell you, if you're a hunter and you're not out shooting these matches, you are screwing yourself, because I think they're one of the most frustrating groups of people I deal with is, you know what I mean? How do you convince somebody who's shot a deer every year for the last 20 years that they don't know how to shoot? But then you get them out to one of these matches and they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to shoot. And that ego takes over. And the good guys come out, they get their ass handed to them the first time, and then they start figuring out, What do I need to do to get better? And you'll see him back over and over and over. And, he may have hit 3 targets the first match he went to. And then the next time he's like, man, I hit 20 targets. Oh my God. I can't believe how much better I shooting. And then you'll see him back the next year and the next year. And pretty soon they're one of these top competitors who are like, man, my hit percentage in the field has gone through the roof. I hear people all the time, criticizing this caliber or that. Oh, you can't hunt elk with a 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, okay, there's some limitations to it, but I get guys all the time like, if you're shooting an animal past 400 yards, you're just target practicing on game. Like, really? Because the ballistics don't prove that out. What I think is you or your buddies can't shoot. And so you gut shot one with a 6.5 Creedmoor and he got away. And now you're blaming the caliber, not your individual skills. Okay. I'm busy, kiddo. You got to come back later. Sorry. Okay. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Sorry. But it's, we've seen it even in the Hunter series, right? There's at least 4 or 5 guys I've had to talk off a ledge where you walk up and you're like, well, this is kind of odd. This guy wasn't in front of me the whole rest of the time, and he's just standing in a staging area somewhere. You're like, well, what's going on? Like, oh, I'm done. What do you mean you're done? Like, well, I haven't hit a target yet. I think I'm just done. This isn't fun. Like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, you think it's a dope problem? You think, oh, I don't have any of that. Like, what do you mean you don't have any of that? Like, what's the velocity on your rifle? I don't know. The box said. Like, oh, the box said.
Lord. Don't start on the box. Don't start on the box, said this. You're going down that quick. The box said it was this fast, so that's what oh Lord.
Right. So, but people don't understand that, if you're the average, and I'm not talking about all hunters here, right? I mean, I know some guys who are phenomenal hunters who really understand this whole thing, but it's, a lot of guys just don't get it. They're the I buy a box of ammo and that's going to last me 3 years, right? So 20 rounds, I'm going to take 5 rounds. I'm going to zero my rifle with 5 rounds, and then I'm going to take that box out and I'm going to hunt for the next 5 years with it. So they don't ever take the time to shoot at distance to find out, can I hit a 12-inch circle or at 600 yards? The good ones understand their limitations. Hey, 300 yards is my max limitation. Anything past that, I just don't feel comfortable. Great. I appreciate your honesty with yourself. What can we do to get you beyond that? I've had several guys show up and like, 300 is my limit. I just don't feel comfortable. I want to feel comfortable shooting to 600 yards. Okay, we can do that. Now I know your expectations. I know your limitations, or at least what you think your limitations are. And now we can work to what the goal is to be able to get it there. Okay. And really, with the equipment we have today, there's no reason that you should not be able to take a game animal at 600 yards with the appropriate caliber if you're a reasonably, you don't have to be a great shooter.
I like
reasonably good.
Appropriate caliber.
The appropriate caliber, right? You're not shooting an elk with a 223 at 600 yards. It doesn't make any sense, right? Mm-hmm. But we've seen, we talked about Phil Vallejo earlier, he just took a big 800-pound elk this last year with a 6.5 Creedmoor at 700 yards? That is not an unreasonable thing to do. The energy for that cartridge is there. If you are putting the shot where it needs to be, it will take that animal down. Same thing with any of you go to a bigger cartridge, a 300 Win Mag. Look at what the appropriate distance for the muzzle velocity and the energy left at target is. That's what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. Now, just because the rifle will do that doesn't mean that you will do that. Right. You are the weak link in the system. It is not the rifle, it's you. Your rifle will outshoot you every day of the week, with some limitations. But people get this ego about themselves. Well, I've been shooting my whole life and I know how to shoot, and you can't teach me anything. Well, you're right. With that attitude, I probably can't. I've had several instances in my life that, like I said, I've been an instructor since '07. And like '09, I think it was, I went out and took a Appleseed class. I don't know if you're familiar with them, Project Appleseed. But basically, they're a Revolutionary War history organization, but they teach rifle marksmanship to get you out and involved, so they could teach you the history of this country and why those guys did what they did and who they were and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so easy. It's going to be a great week, and I'm going to score rifleman the first time. I go out there, I'm like, holy crap, I don't know how to shoot. And going into that competition dynamics match was another one of those times for me. I thought I was a good shooter. I've been an instructor for 5 years. I've been out to these, I was an instructor with the Project Appleseed. I knew how to shoot. We always shot with slings and, traditional marksmanship techniques. I went out to one of these CD matches and I was like, wow, I thought I knew what I was doing. I don't know how to shoot. And the guys who can drop that ego and make that realization that, hey, I can be better all the time. I can always be changing. I can always be growing. And just because I'm a good shot now doesn't mean you can't be a better shot tomorrow. I was fortunate enough to be, when I first started teaching, to have some really good instructors that knew how to teach. And one of the things they taught me was, you're always a student and sometimes you're an instructor. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And I wish more people understood that.
Yeah. And I know I'm going to get messages. I always do. They're going to say, why are you ripping on me? I want you kind of, this is the thing, is like, they think like we're personally attacking people. Yeah. You take your grandpa's gun. Your grandpa told you to go out and shoot a pie plate at 100 yards. If you hit the pie plate, you're good. You're dialed. There's nothing about it. And I've said the story about my father-in-law about, he had an entire box of 30-06 ammo, but they were all different tips, different weights. But guess what? He didn't know any better, so you can't hold it against him. But, he's shooting 150s, 180s, 165s. There's a whole bunch of shit in this freaking thing. I just sat there and went, holy hell. Because number one, and I'm going to preach it again, you're not ethical to an animal. That's number one in my book, especially if you're shooting animals. If you're shooting still, it's something different, and you're going to freaking put all sorts of lead in them hills because you ain't going to hit shit with it. And that's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. But I just want y'all, it's nothing to attack anybody. It's nothing to belittle anybody. It's something to merely get your brain thinking like, hey, okay, I might be doing okay, but I want to get better. And that's a lot of the reason how a lot of these guys that are in the top percentage of shooting, they've understood that. I've heard a lot of podcasts recently about, I'm investing in optics, I'm investing in guns, I'm investing in all this stuff. I've got a $10,000 gun. Awesome. Good for you. If you can afford that, phenomenal. But how much money have you invested in yourself? And every one of them's like, well, I haven't. What are you talking about? And I'm like, well, have you taken a class? No. Have you, just sat down with somebody that knows what they're doing and, learn some of this and gone through it? No. Another one, I get the freaking velocity out the box. Oh shit. Please don't ever tell me that. Take a marker, freaking scratch that shit out, and don't ever.
I wish they just stopped putting it there.
I know. But
it
that's
doesn't
the
matter.
thing. Sammy, like when we did it, Sammy made us put it there. That was what we had to do because it was out of a certain test barrel, a certain velocity, and everything else. Another thing, I'm going to blow some of your minds. You look at the BC, in your little calculator, and you think that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Somebody's going to freaking lose their shit right now. I know it, but that isn't how it works. You, depending on twist rate, depending on velocity, that's all going to freaking change.
But the website said it was a 323. Like, sorry, that doesn't matter.
But again, we're not belittling anybody. We're here for education. That's what we're here about. And that's why we have Andy here, because he's even educating me. I've been doing this for well north of a decade, and I still sit here all the time and I still learn stuff, because that's how you've got to be. And you've got to be a little bit of the humble pie, a piece of the humble pie to learn, hey, maybe I could be doing something a little better, or something different to make myself better. You can
Yeah.
shut yourself off, you can kick your ass, and kind of like what Andy said, if you got to talk yourself off a ledge, I get it. So you can do one of two things. You can step back and you can go invest some more money into yourself and go invest some more time practicing, or you can just say kick rocks, bye, I know what I'm doing. But there's going to be a time that you're going to be like, shit, I wish I would have freaking stuck with that because I could have made this shot better. Or, when it comes to that monster muley you're chasing, you've got one shot and you freaking cry yourself to sleep for the next 6 years because you missed him. It's stuff like that. We've all done it. Hell, I've still done it, and I shoot a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, I get the buck fever. We all do. But these are things, putting yourself on the clock, testing yourself, running your abilities is going to make you a better shooter down the road. Right? Right.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. Just it just always be I'm always learning. Like every class I teach, I learn something from somebody in that class. Whether it's just, hey, don't do it like this, or it's those little tweaks like, we just talked about with the facial anchor point thing. It took a archery guy to bring that up for me to be like, oh, yeah, that's the concept is that I'm looking for here is you know don't ever get so stuck in your own ways that you think you've got it all together. And and again, I didn't make all this stuff up. I'm looking at Frank and Scott Satterley is a genius with this stuff. I try and see as much as stuff he can. Tyler Hughes, Brian Whalen, with all the guys down at Rifles Only, Lindy and Jacob. Uh, it just Phil and Kalen. I mean, my goodness, we are so fortunate to have those guys in our realm now. Chris Way is another guy who I'm always looking at what he's doing. Me and Chris shot together a lot that first year. He was in the series. He kind of came out of nowhere. I got introduced to him from a friend of ours. He had never shot this discipline before, and he's just, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it full time for a year and see what happens. And he takes things from such a different aspect because he doesn't have that dogmatic approach that many of us have. Even like I said, a lot of this stuff comes from military background, right? So these guys have this program of we need to do it like this. When you start getting out of that and think, why do we need to do it like that? Why is it that was taught to us? Well, yeah, that may work, but does it work for everybody? Well, no, it doesn't work for everybody. And again, I don't want to pick on hunters, and I don't want to pick on the military guys either, but we see the same thing with these military guys coming to a lot of these matches, especially on the CD and the team side. They have this idea in their head, well, I'm a sniper, I'm a ranger, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to hand these guys their ass. And then some dentist and some construction worker just skull drags them. And, they're at the bottom third of the list. And they're like, oh my God, what they're personally offended by that. It's like these guys that actually come back, like, Phil, I know, talked about it too. He's like, my first match is like, I thought I was just going to kill this deal. And here I come out and it's like, I'm in the bottom part of the pack and these guys are doing things I've never even heard of before, using tripods and tripod rear support and, all this other stuff that they didn't have the availability to do. So they're taking this now back to their units and saying, hey, this is what we can do. If we just can change get rid of some of that dogmatic BS and figure out why are we doing it? Why does this work? That's what we really thinking shooters is what we want to develop, not just somebody else pulling a trigger.
Right. And the LE side's the same way. I had
It's even worse.
A few months ago, I had Mark Lang on. Mark's a good friend of mine. He runs TAC Flow Academy. And that's all they do is they go around and try to break these things that have been put in these guys' heads. And, a lot of my SF guys, a lot of my Ranger buddies, they're all like, dude, we started shooting because we realized it made us a better freaking shooter. some of them guys, man, like you said, they get butt hurt. I mean, the butt hurt is they
bad.
gotta bring Vaseline to the damn match. But hey, I've been there too. I've been freaking. I just show up and I just start laughing at myself because it's just such a shit show. I mean, it happens. I mean, that's what it is. Anymore, it's the stupid little things that kick my ass. Freaking forgetting to dial back, forgetting to load a full magazine. I'm like, I've got to build a cheat sheet and put it on my forehead or somewhere that I can see it with a mirror.
Oh, I dropped a bunch of points at that Oklahoma match here a few weeks ago. It was like, it was stupid stuff. I shot the freaking target indicator twice in a row. Like, I should have known. It's a big 12-inch piece of paper. I'm like, there's my target. Shot it twice. And I used to go to move to the next position. I yell back there. I was like, hey, that's the target indicator, huh? He's like, yeah, but you put a hell of a group on that thing, man. I've been doing this a decade, and I still make mistakes like that,
Yeah, I had a bunch of those MGM freaking flashers, and I walked out there to pick them up. I'm like, holy shit, how many people shot my freaking flasher? Like they shot the orange thing on top of it. I'm like, you guys got to be shitting me.
Yeah. Well, and you just have to just leave all that stuff at the door. It's a funny deal that happened this last year at one of the team matches. Dorgan Trostel, and then Sky Thomas, who's the designer of the Sky Pod, right? No, dentists are awesome, man. Rusty Ulmer is one of the best shooters going. So we're at this team match, right? And this is kind of the mentality of, we get, you showed me your, Typer sniper deal earlier.
That is Rusty, by the way.
That's Rusty. Hey, yeah. What's up, dude? We just taught that class together out in camp. So we're out there, and Dorgan shoots for Burris, and they brought their web guys out, and they're putting all this stuff on Instagram. We're shooting this assault course. Well, when you put stuff online, it doesn't look like as fast as you can do it. And, they don't know the context of what you're doing or how muddy it is when you're trying to run down there and not, fall on your butt and, drop your pistol or whatever. And so there's all these guys coming on there. Oh, these guys are a joke. They don't know what they're doing. And they have no idea. This is like the top team in the country. Besides Sean Murphy and Greg Hamilton, Sky and Dorgan are one of the top team shooters out there. Like, there's just almost nobody that can beat them, which we've beat them a couple of times, but I'll get into that later. But there's all these guys on there. The most hurtful statements weren't the guys bashing on them. It was the guys that were coming on and defending them. Well, this is what most mid-pack shooters really look like. And so from then on, and in fact, Justin Wilhite, I don't know if you guys know him. He started a apparel company called Mid-Pack Shooters, just based on that. So if you guys get a chance, go over and look at his website. It's midpackshooters.com. But he's got a bunch of great gear. Just kind of, it's like we're all mid-pack shooters, man. Like, it's just any given day. Like, I'm not one of the top guys in the country. I'm not, yeah, we do real good at some of these matches. And, I've won some matches, but I've lost some matches really bad too. And at the end of the day, I'm out there to be better than I was last time. And in a team match, all I'm looking to do is beat Dorgan and Sky. That's it. And when I'm in an individual match, all I'm looking to do is beat Colin Fossen and Dorgan. Like, I don't care if we're all dead last. I'm just looking to beat those two guys. And that means I did better than I did last weekend. And we're always within 1 point, one way or the other. So, go out with your buddies, pick a goal that you're going to have and work toward that goal. That doesn't mean you have to be the top shooter. You need to make the AG Cup. Who cares? Go out and have a good time, and have fun with your buddies. Be better than you did last time and learn something. And then if you're a hunter, take that out in the field and apply that knowledge to the game you love to play, which is hunting.
Yeah, I preached that. I've preached it a bunch of times. People are going to get sick of me saying it. I said, and I had a good conversation with, holy hell, Morgan King this morning. I'm like, you can't put yourself as a shooter in, I can't. Okay, I'm not talking for you. as a shooter, I can't put myself in the same context as the Morgans or the Viberts or some of these guys that constantly are at the very top of the game.
They're
What
amazing.
what I do when I compete is I look at the other guys that I usually shoot with when I do shoot, when I have time, and try to put myself kind of like how you explained it. Now, in dummy terms, I try to put myself against those guys. Where are they placing? Am I with them or am I below them? So if I'm below them, what am I doing? Am I not practicing? Am I not, what did I do completely? Oh, it's the gun. It's got to be the gun, the throat shot. We all have that freaking excuse, but putting yourself against other people in your caliber of shooting is what most people don't do. They look at that top 10, the top 20, and they're like, oh, I didn't get anywhere near that, so I suck. That's not the point. You've got to be able to compete against the people you can compete with. And
Yeah.
I kind of want that to soak in as well as you're thinking about going into your next match. Don't go into that. Go into, did I get a little bit better than I did last time? Did I perform better? What mistakes did I make? Am I getting rid of those dumb mistakes? Because I can't seem to get rid of them. But
I can't
you
either,
know,
but
but I just food for thought. Food for thought. That's what we're here for. We're just here.
hey, I'd like to address the little comment on the bottom here from Jose. Yeah, Dorgan and Sky did not skull drag the field at BOTC. They beat us by like 2 points. Okay, give me a break.
Rick Jose's got his wooden spoon down in Bama. He's having a good time down in the South. He's got his grits and he's out of it.
Watch out for Jose at the next match because he's one of these cart guys now. Apparently,
Oh, Lord.
he's dragging his baby cart around. So I'm just gonna say, don't listen to what a guy who drags a baby cart to a match says.
Is that like the same guy at SHOT Show that hit you with their cart as they walk by and you want to kick it over? Those freaking guys are the worst, man.
Oh man, I love Jose, man. He's always making us laugh when we're out shooting. Yeah. He came out a couple of years ago and shot an assault stage in his T-Rex costume. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. If you haven't seen the video of it, check it out on his page. It's hilarious.
Hey, shout out to him. Him and his wife. Well, his wife carried him. We know that. But him and his wife,
yeah,
who did they take? Second in the team hunter division at, at
Altus or Arena, I guess it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Arena.
Yeah.
So that's
they're both
thing.
really good shooters, man. I was fortunate to be from Colorado when they were there, and we've had a bunch of really great people out of that Colorado area. With Andy Hawkins and Nick Depperschmidt and Dorgan and Jose and Caleb Connor, and Caleb's just one of the best people you've ever met. Anytime I get to shoot with him, and then Brian Whalen, and I mean, just great individuals to shoot with, and have made me a better shooter by getting to shoot with them and seeing what they've done. I think that's one of the best things about this sport is you get to shoot as an amateur with quote unquote professionals, right? You get to see what these guys do. You get to, it's kind of like that pro-am in golf. You get to go out and you may be the bottom of the barrel shooter, but you get to shoot and see what these guys are doing and get tips and tricks and hints. And, and everybody I know in this sport would give you the shirt off their back.
Yeah. Most of them.
Sure. Yeah, sure. There's always that. And the bigger the sport gets, the more of those guys we see, just like we did in 3-gun, right?
And that's when you go twist their freaking windage turret, when they're not looking because they're freaking jackasses. Make sure you go all the way to 0 so they don't realize
it. This used to be a sport very much like that. I was telling somebody the other day, and I don't know if you remember this or not. It was a big deal with the guys like in New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, where if you left a piece of gear laying around, they would draw a dick on it. And you couldn't. And I remember the first time I had it happen to me, and I was like, I finally made it. Somebody drew a dick on my bag, and I knew they accepted me, and I was one of the guys, and Aaron had to go screw that all up for us and draw a dick on some guy's rifle at a match, and he got all pissed off. And So
We
that
all
kind
had
of ended that
we
whole
all
deal.
had condoms. We'd tie condoms to shit and then put condoms over people's scopes and stuff. That was always fun. I mean, that's the point, though. It's having fun and just, being good. And, that's half the reason why I go to matches is to look at what shorts Dorgan's wearing. It's just some of those times I'm like, dude, you ain't hiding much. That ain't tactical. I'm like, you're going to slip
I love
something.
shooting with that guy, man. I mean, I've been shooting with him for a long time, and like you said, we were talking about earlier. It used to be, you go to, it was as much a party, afterwards as it was going and shooting a match. A lot of
Yeah.
times we'd have to call, Dorgan would show up and he'd be laying under a truck. And you'd have to be like, "Hey, dude, it's your turn." It's like, "Okay," he'd go throw up, and then he'd come over and shoot his stage. Um, but
One of my
it's
favorites was Gene. You remember Gene from Idaho?
Gene. I think I do, but I can't picture his face.
He'd RO, dude. He'd show up. I don't know how he was still alive half the time. I'm like, dude, you're getting me drunk standing by you. He had to quit. He got so bad. Like, he passed out during the damn match a couple times. I'm like, that's probably it. Oh, Gene's the best, though. Some of them Idaho boys. That's the thing, though, is we had all these guys around. They were just the salt of the earth. And guess what? There's probably a bunch more now, but I just
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
shoot.
and people have just taken it so seriously now. I mean, they've got they're this whole points thing, and then they tried to go to this professional route. I mean, I had some guy try and show me his professional picture off the you know precision rifle website and tell me how
Don't you
awesome
know
he
who I
was.
am?
Like, I'm sure you're great, dude, but like that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm like, people have taken this so far. This was a hobby. I mean, it still is a hobby. Let's be real. I mean, this isn't a professional sport. I have a real hard time believing it ever will be, just in the climate that guns are put in the political sphere and everything else. Uh, we can have fun with it. I mean, there's a very small amount of people making a living doing this, and they're not making a living shooting matches. I guarantee you that. You're Jake Viberts, maybe. I mean, but he's making his money off his steel company. He's got other deals going on. This isn't what he does for a living. Okay, don't let anybody tell you that. Yeah, he's got some great sponsors. They hook him up. They help him out. And a lot of us do. I've got some really great sponsors. I've shot for Steiner for years, XLR, Impact, Hawkins is one of my sponsors. But we're not making a living doing this. I spend 20 times more money going to matches than I'm ever going to get from a sponsor or pull off a prize table or anything. And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, prize tables are awesome. It's great to, get a nice prize off a prize table and take something home. But if I can't use it, I'm probably not going to take it,
Well,
and so
I've said that before, though. I'm like, how many times by the time we paid for fuel, especially now, and ammo and the gun and everything else, I could have went and bought whatever I picked up off the prize table for a lot less money.
oh,
You know
10
what I
times
mean?
over.
So that's what I think people need to kind of wrap their head around. Now I get it. There's a lot of people out there that are like super like competitive. It's golf, it's everything.
Sure.
We've all had those guys, and I totally get it. But you got to also not ruin it for everybody else too. And I think that's part of the problem is they get so competitive, over a couple points in something that what is that going to do for you? You know, um, did you win a whole bunch extra money because of the 2 points? Did it get you a chassis instead of a Kestrel? Like, what
Yeah.
was the difference there? You know what I mean?
Well,
And
especially when it comes at the cost of your integrity sometimes too. I mean, we had several years ago, we had a bunch of people get caught cheating, and I know that stuff still goes on today, and whether it's just, bringing somebody with you that you're making shoot first in your squad and, getting a win call off of them, or, you're trying to switch calibers out while between your squad while you're shooting, or, you're arguing with ROs for points. Like, what does that gain you really? Why? It comes at the cost of your integrity. And as far as I'm concerned, that's number one, right? If I had to lie or cheat my way into another point, that's it. I'm done. I'm not playing this anymore. And those people aren't here anymore either. This is a very small community. And if you get caught doing that kind of crap, you aren't ever coming back to another match again. You might as well just sell your gear.
Well, and I don't know. I've had issues with this before. I think a lot of people get away with a lot of stuff too because no one dares say anything. Because
Who's your buddy?
yeah, it's I don't know. We could have a whole nother podcast about this. What you can get away with now shooting these days and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I had a guy comment the other day and he goes, "Man, you guys are just negative. You just negative. You make it for us new guys. You don't want to start." I'm like, "No, you just only heard a part of the podcast and you didn't listen to the whole thing. Like we had fun. We've said it. Shit, we've had good times."
Yeah.
It's like that. It's one of some of the funnest things. Like I know if I need to go about anywhere in the country, I know somebody because I've shot with them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if I need to go to Georgia right now, I got 4 houses I can stay at. You know what I mean? It's just, that's how it is. It's the camaraderie, it's the fun and everything else. And I said it, go into it knowing that you're just going to have fun. And that's all there is to it. I guess we could sit here and preach to everybody all day long. We don't need to.
They're not going to listen anyway. What are you going to do?
Well, some of them will, But hence, that's the reason I kind of want to do a little play here is that's why we started Long Range Tactics.
Yeah.
We want to put out solid information. We want to put out, stuff that, we kind of educate. We don't harass people. We don't talk shit on people. We pull that shit out as soon as it starts happening. We shut posts off. We do that kind of stuff. We're not like a lot of the other groups with that kind of thing. Now, we're trying to make a name for ourselves with, educating or bringing people in that can help educate and learn. And, that like I suck at optics. I'm not very good at them. I've been sponsored by a few optics companies. I can't really talk about it. But if you want to talk ballistics with me, I can talk ballistics. If you want to talk rifle barrels, I can talk some of that. So we've got a good plethora of people in the membership and as the team at Long Range Tactics that have the knowledge to really help you, be better. And we try to comment in the group, Long Range Tactics Official. Some of you are watching from there. There's over 20,000 followers in there. Great place for knowledge, and we're trying to make it better. So if you aren't a member of it, go join. And we try to invite everybody in. We kick the bad ones out and don't give a shit. Say see you, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, and have a good time. And so go over there, check it out, and comment, have fun with it, and then let us know what you're thinking. I also want to thank all of you. We just went over 10,000 followers on Facebook on the podcast. We're at a couple 100,000 downloads now. There's good things coming, and we really, truly appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. I did have some freaking audio issues in the beginning, but I think we figured them out. More money, of course. That's why I'm missing one kidney because my audio had to have been better. But we're getting there. And then freaking you, of course, making me want to go buy shit again. Now I got to go freaking.
Yeah, I know.
I thought we were friends. What the hell?
It's a rough life, man, but you can't take it with you. You might as well have a nice rifle.
Yeah, as George Strait said, I've never seen a hearse with a luggage rack.
That's right. That's right. Might as well have another set of rangefinders.
That's all I need is another damn rangefinder. But you got
to. That's why I got in the business. Is it's tax deductible now, and if
I try to tell my wife that she still.
It's easier to bring in the door because it's like, hey, it's for business. It's for my business.
Yeah, my wife walked into my vault the other day. She goes, "What's that rifle?" I'm like,
"Oh, bad idea."
What the hell did you know that was? She goes, "I know that's there." I'm like, "Shit." And I'm like, "There you go, Jason at Falcor. Thanks for painting that one blue so it stood out."
My wife just quit looking. She just she's like, "You do what you're gonna do. I don't even want to know about it." Just so I put it all out in the shop anyway. She doesn't ever come out there, so that works good.
Yeah, but I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Cole.
So Andy, of course, is in the group. He watches stuff. He's got his Facebook page. Reach out to him if you have questions and stuff, and then check out. How do you check out where you guys are training now? Like, how do they find you to learn about training classes?
Well, hit me up. Right now, I'm kind of in between things. I just moved up to Nebraska, so I'm kind of rebuilding everything that I did. I do teach for CP Rifle still, so check out their classes. I will be posting stuff on my Facebook page and trying to post stuff on my Instagram page. My Instagram's Andy Rifleman. I'm just Andy Reinhardt on Facebook, so you guys can hit me up there. My profile's all public, so you can see that. And I am working on trying to get a website up and running. It's going to be andyrifleman.com. for a lot of different content and, schedules and things like that. So that's probably, as much as I love shooting and I'm pretty good at it, I suck at doing computer stuff. And like, I was one of those guys, I was kind of on that cutoff in school. I was like, computers are going to be a fad. I don't have to worry about that stuff. It's never going to catch. And then
Y2K.
yeah, I graduated in 98. So I was like, that's Y2K is going to take care of all that. I'm never going to have to worry about any of that anyway. So I'm looking for somebody to do some web development stuff right now that get my website up and running. And I'll have to give you a shout offline to see. I know you're a pretty smart guy.
I was telling one of my other buddies, I'm good at looking like I'm smart, but I'm really a freaking moron. I just know the right people.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Knowing the right people, right?
Exactly. Well, I appreciate it, brother. Again, if you need anything from Long Range Addicts podcast, hit us up, PM us, DM us, go over to Long Range Tactics, the group, and check it out. Again, till next time, we appreciate listening. Thanks.
Thanks, Cole.
Don't be afraid to pipe up. Send us your questions or topics and we'll cover them on the show. Thanks for listening.